Hello, everybody. So excited to be here. I am Victoria and I'm with Randy. And
Hi.
today, hi, Randy. Today we're so excited. We were just chatting about how we're actually going to be talking about something that's so monumentally important to both of us personally, but then also when we think about children, right? And teens, so important to them as well, which is gratitude. And not only gratitude, but how do we actually help children develop and help cultivate this gratitude in a world that is me centered? And I just love this title that you came up with, Randy. And so I want to ask you, what are your thoughts about gratitude? What is gratitude?
So it's a good question, actually, because gratitude is full of so many different pieces. It's kind of caught on world as being something that's good to cultivate. I think when I think of it, I think of the first step, which is a lot of times you hear grown-ups saying to kids, "Say please, say thank you, what's your magic words?" And what I always say to that's there's no magic. It's please and thank you are not magic words. They're actually regular words that you use when you want something and you receive something, standard operating procedure. So that's kind of where I think gratitude even starts. That sort of getting out of this idea that they're not magic words to say thank you. Thank you and please are meant to be things that belong part of our normal interactions. And we often live in a world where that's kind of not expected or not done.
Yeah, I love what
And
you just brought up. It's really, really important. I want to make that as I want to highlight it because what you're saying is children, right, grow up. I'm always saying this to parents is that these are developing creatures who are just learning about these concepts. And so when we say something like those are the magic words, it's like, oh, if I say that, I'm just going to get what I want. Well, I hear kids saying all the time, but I said, please. Yeah, but
right,
the world doesn't revolve, especially as we get older, the world revolves around us less and less. And so if these are
right.
magic words, they've lost their magic because they're not right. So
That's
we
right.
actually model for children what the meaning of this is and the sacredness of having gratitude and appreciation. So I love
Right.
how you framed that. I really do.
So I think you're right because again, when you teach that it's magic and this is how you get what you want, and if you just say, "What do you say? What do you say?" It's sort of like, "Oh, I say this and I get." So it's more about trying to say, um, what do you want to let them know, like how do we speak, how do you ask for something, what happens when someone gives you something. One of the things that I love to have children do, and I do with my own kids, maybe I have to get back to doing it a little bit more, I think, is can you name five? So the game is, can you name five people or five things that helped you get what it is that you have now? So, for example, let's say you get a book in the mail, right? So think about, can you name five things that needed to happen in order for you to get that book? So when
Mm.
you start to develop that idea of, can you name five? Or we went on a trip, or you got to school today, okay, or you were in school. Can you name five people who helped you be at school today? And when you ask kids to think about that, that starts to develop this sense of it didn't just appear out of midair like magic. Here's
Right.
something to appreciate and acknowledge that what I have right in front of me is something, wow, that a lot of people had to do in order for me to take advantage and to benefit from. And so it's a fun way to do it. And you can do it really at any age, even with adolescents, because you do it just more in a more, like an older kid way. So what five things had to happen before you got your iPhone, something like that, to get some sense of what's involved. And I think that's really like a good starting point.
I love it. I want to frame this conversation for people that are watching. I want to almost talk a little bit about and what your ideas are around the importance and significance of this conversation. Because I can see people saying, what's the big deal about gratitude? Right? Like why do I have to think about that? Right? Like bigger picture. And I often think about, Randy, when I am feeling a certain way, when I'm feeling down, or when I'm feeling a little bit, melancholy, or I've lost a little bit of my sight of joy, for that day, or something's going on in my life.
Right.
I've been turning to gratitude practice. And I'm curious, have you done that? And what is your take on that? Like, why do we take on a gratitude practice when we're feeling a little down, or, things are just not going in a way that feels good or balanced to us? What's the importance of gratitude?
Yeah, so it actually is a huge um, balancer, and I don't mean an exact, because when I think of balance, we always think everything has to be equal, but
Yeah.
not in this case. When we are feeling worried or nervous or sad or overwhelmed, or, especially with the pandemic, and there's been so many things going on, it's easy to lose sight of things that are going well. And when you get into that space of frustration, and especially for kids, it's kind of easy to go into the like everything is just miserable, everything is annoying, or kind of forgetting that things are actually good. And what happens is when you can look and see something that actually is good, even within a difficult situation, I always say, seek and ye shall find. There's always
Mm.
something you can find to be grateful for. It flips a switch really in our brains. It really does. It allows us to say, even if the day is, let's say, a really hard day, but the sun is shining and you appreciate seeing the green of a tree, and you look and you say, the trees look so nice today. It allows you to sort of gears, and modeling that for kids is so important, because kids, I feel like, there's that book, Alexander and the Terrible Awful Day. There's a famous book out there for little kids, and all it is about him complaining about how awful the day is, how everything went wrong and all these things. And then maybe the last page of the book, it says, I realized it wasn't such a bad day after all. But we can get caught up in that. And so I do find that the practice of gratitude helps us shift gears.
Mm-hmm.
And even can really make a big difference for children. If you're traveling someplace and it takes longer than you expected, and everyone's complaining about the traffic and this, and you're focusing, it makes your trip and your travel really not so nice.
Yeah.
Honestly,
And
you can really,
I love
it makes
what you're
things
saying.
better.
It's like when kids are watching you do this, right? You're sitting in traffic, they're in the back, they're watching your reaction and your responses. And it's not to make everyone feel like, oh my gosh, I'm being watched, but that's what you mean by modeling, right?
Yes,
Modeling what you do. And so parents are the biggest influencers and empowerers of their child, right? And so
absolutely.
what are some other things, other tips that you can give parents in different situations where they can really utilize and maximize modeling?
Yes, so it's actually, you're right, Victoria. It's really the key, to be honest, in helping your kids and cultivate gratitude is by you displaying it, doing it intentionally. When you think about it and you say, I am purposely going to point out things that we are grateful for, that's when it's a game changer. And it doesn't mean that you ignore anything that's challenging, because that's the piece, the balancing piece. Gratitude is not being about a cheerleader all the time, because that's not realistic life either. Like, we can't always be like, oh, it's fine, everything's great. You know what? Sometimes everything isn't fine and everything isn't great. But
Yeah.
we can say, but so that's one of the things that I talk with parents a lot, and I do with children. And I'll actually kind of like talk something through purposefully, intentionally, to give them a sense. Like, let's say, when I've been in classrooms and your schedule changes and you say, oh gosh, I was
Mm.
disappointed, I wanted to go to the gym today, but you know, since we're not going to the gym, now we can actually do this. And that's actually nice. We wouldn't have had the time to do it. Okay, that's the way we're going to do it. And even just doing that, sort of sharing with your children when you get home from the day, maybe something didn't work out. And you say, well, you know, even though that didn't work out and I was disappointed, I was looking forward to that. I realized maybe because this happened, it's not the worst thing. And trying to really go through those calculations in a way, in
Mm-hmm.
front of your children really
Mm-hmm.
can make a very big difference, because just like you said, and it's not to make us feel uncomfortable, it's to help us realize that we have a grand opportunity right in front of us, that our kids are picking up every single thing that we're saying, all of it. So if
All of
we're
it.
going to throw in, yes, so the more gratitude and goodness and I'm going to work this out and I'm going to, you know, through, your kids are going to start to kind of develop that same um, approach in their own way, because they're seeing you do it, and you know it seems to be something you're doing regularly, more than just saying please and thank you. That's really it. It's not just about that, because that's just plain talk. It's just the way you communicate. It's really about integrating it into your life. I have actually I found this Target a long time ago. It's this pad of paper. It says I'm thankful for. So that's
Mm.
something that I often will talk to parents about. If you have a refrigerator that you could put a magnet on and have, you know, or a whiteboard next to it, but have this up, see if anyone wants to fill in. If no one in your family, which I had at first, I started doing it because I said, fine, you think it's like, because sometimes kids will be like, that's weird. Like, what do I need to do that for? But you write it out and you post it. You know, that's one thing. I often suggest, you know, to talk about 3 things you're grateful for, or that worked out well for you before your kids go to sleep.
Yeah, and
That's
and good
another way.
times during the day to do it, right? Like dinner time, dinner
Yes.
conversation, right? It can include that. I always like to say, what are two glows and a grow, right? So
Yes.
what are two things, right, that you can talk about the day that really went well, that worked, and then
Right.
what's something that could have gone better, and that's something that
Right.
even we as adults can do a better job
Yes.
at, right?
Yes. So that I actually is why kids don't necessarily really do that. And also don't think, you know, and like I said, when I say this to parents, I say you also, you know, I've never seen a pad of paper that says I am not thankful for, because I think
Yeah.
that wouldn't sell. But you really could say, okay, so what are you thankful for? What went well? And then you can say, what didn't go well? What do you wish could have gone better? That's fine, you know, and that's the thing I think that we sometimes forget, that we don't have to be all cheerleadery. Like I said before, it's not what this is about. It's about saying that's life. We have things we're grateful for. We have things we don't, but we don't need to only focus on what we're not grateful for. And that we as are sort of more easily drawn to that, because that gets more attention typically around us. So we go to the complaining mode. It's much easier to complain.
Yeah.
But when you to look for something to be grateful for, and the one thing I tell parents this all the time, and I've seen it from my own practice, when you intentionally look for things to be grateful for, of small and large, all it takes work in the beginning if you're not used to doing it. But if you say it along with looking for it, it becomes a lot more part of just what you do, that you don't even realize that you're saying it. And that's
Mhm.
when you know you've really, and that's, I think, where you kind of create a shift, is by intentionally doing it at first, but not just doing one-sided. And I like that you had that, the glows and the grows. It's not one-sided. Gratitude is not about being sided. We had been talking, Victoria, also about self-care. Like, this doesn't mean I have to say, oh, I'm so thankful for, you know, having to be so busy that I had no time to do anything for myself. You know, it's about saying I'm thankful I was able to do this and that, but I also need to find ways to nurture myself and take care of me. That's not being selfish, and that's not showing gratitude. It's finding, again, not an exact balance, but type of way to say, there's this and there's that, and they're both part of life.
I like that a lot. I like that a lot. And you know what you were talking about, and the word manifestation came to me. And for different people, the word manifest and calling something in sounds a little woo, you know, kind
Right.
of woo woo. And you know, we're not going to get into that. But you know, at the same time, when we focus on what we don't want, we're focusing on the very thing that we don't want. And the universe, our mind, actually, our mind, our brain, neurologically, does not hear "I don't want this." All it
Right.
hears is the this, right?
Right.
And so our mind just tends to get used to that, right? And we call that in more. So the practice is really what you're talking about is noticing the things that go well, because as human beings, we are actually looking for what's not going well as protective mechanisms to stay
Correct.
away from it, right? But in our modern day, there's no dinosaurs around, right? Nobody's going to eat us
Correct.
up
We
and
don't
then
need to do that anymore.
you don't need
Correct.
to, right? And so
Right.
focusing on the good, like you said, might take some work. And I think that that's sometimes the challenge when we're talking about these things is something that you're not always doing right now, how to make it into a pattern, a behavior, a dynamic
Right.
that's new. And the only way is like, I think about the Nike sign. It's like, just do it. Like, rip off the
That's right.
Band-Aid, just do it, right? And so, do you have any tips for people who are like, I've never done that. My kids are going to look at me like I'm nutso, like talking
Right.
about glows and grows. And what are some
Right.
tips that you have for people who just
So,
aren't doing this on a normal, everyday basis?
right. So the first thing I would say is if they are into what's your magic words, if that's sort of been part of your um, way of doing things, sort of that's like stop that. That's
Stop
like
it.
put the
Oh, yeah.
brakes on that,
Yep.
and be into please and thank you is just part of how you ask and when you receive, just part of
Yep.
how we talk. It's like saying hello and goodbye, same
Yep.
kind of thing, nothing
Mm-hmm.
different. Stop, go, just the same kind of thing. So that I would say is the first kind of mind shift. And then I
Wait, wait,
think
wait,
what
wait,
one
wait. I have a
oh
I have
what
a question. I can
yes.
already see some of my parents asking, wait a minute, but then my kids are gonna stop being kind, polite little people.
Oh, right. So actually that doesn't really happen. That's the
That's
fear.
right.
And that's why we feel like we have to say they need to know the magic words. But if it's kind of like saying, do you have homework today? It's the words you use to ask and receive. It's just changing the focus. And it's also as a parent using please and thank you when you say things to your children, because I definitely find as a parent, as a teacher, I always was like, please and thank you. I was so like, have to be like very positive and I have to make sure I speak to the children nicely. But at home, you sometimes don't think of it that way. So as a parent, if you start incorporating and you say to your child, please hang up your coat instead of hang up your coat, or please, and then when they do something, thank you for hanging your coat. I really appreciate that, was helpful. Kind of really you modeling that, I think parents will see that their children are not going to forget about please and thank you just because they don't think it's magic anymore.
Yeah.
It kind of doesn't exactly
It doesn't
always
work
go
that
like that.
way.
No,
I
no.
like that. And we also, when I think about this, we want children, right, to be um we want these things to come from an intrinsic place. And I was just speaking
Yeah.
to an incredible couple this morning about their real desire to have their kiddos be polite members of society, but so much
Hmm.
so sometimes that the encouragement to say, please, thank you, hello, goodbye, give this person a handshake, da, 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 right? It becomes external because mom and dad
Right.
are telling you to do it. I got to do it. But as
Right.
children are getting older, we want that to be a little bit more intrinsic, right? We want the desire to say hello, goodbye, please, thank you, to become something that's a part of just their being, right? So that's what you're
Right.
talking about, is having that come from them and modeling it rather than telling them to do it.
Exactly, because telling kids to do it, it just becomes about pleasing adults. themselves or pleasing people around them. And that's really what their aim is, because they just want to say what's right so someone doesn't have to necessarily remind them about it. So it
Yeah.
doesn't become something really meaningful. So that's why when you sort of do it and model, one of the others that I talk to parents a lot, and I have really worked on doing myself, because it's important to me that my children feel grateful as well. I don't want to just be that person for a teacher in a class. I want to be that for the people around me as well, and the people that I interact with. So one of the things that I often will do is, before we're going someplace, um, I'll kind of just mention something about it to give a little clue about something to think about that might be in your mind as we're doing it. So let's say it happened to be we were going to a uh, um, garden, like to visit a garden place on Mother's Day. And I said, "Oh, I'm so excited to see what this place looks like. And I wonder what kind of setup it is and who takes care of it so that it
Mm,
can look so nice when we all come." And no one, I think everyone half listened. But then when we were there, actually, my kids kind of noticed, this looks very natural. This one looks like someone had to cut it. And just kind of having that in your mindset of, what do
mm,
other people do around me, is such an important way that gratitude starts to develop in an intrinsic way, Victoria,
mm,
because that's something you said that is such an important part, because cultivating gratitude in a metered world is not just about telling your kids to be thankful and saying, "What did you say? Did you say thank you? Make sure you say thank you. Don't forget to use your manners." It's not about that, because then they're not going to want to do it on their own somewhere else. And that's really our goal. Our goal is not just to have our children show gratitude to us and be kind and respectful, but it's when they go elsewhere that they're going to be cued in that that's something to do. So that's one of the things that I find is something to do, is to notice what's around you, point it out in a reflective way about how it affects and impacts us. Kids will start picking up on that.
Oh, I love that so much. And I think about the intention with kids, and it's all about supporting children in relating to themselves and others, right? It's about relationship, and it's about how they view the world and experience other people and themselves. And that has nothing to do with having rote rules about how to behave, right? We
Right.
and a lot of times it gets a little bit misconstrued. And I even
Yeah.
see sometimes these rules being used with kids as a controlling thing. Like, well, I
Yes.
didn't get what I wanted, so, and I know that you want me to be polite, so I'm just not going to be polite, right? And the politeness, the thank yous, the gratitude, all of those things get used as a kind of like, a bartering tool. And we don't want
Right.
that. We want that to
No,
be more
no.
intrinsic, more about their experience of other people and life and themselves. And so I would say it takes longer, right? It's much easier to give a rule than to
Yes.
cultivate. And I always say it's better to do it now, because your, investment, your return on the investment of doing it
It
now
pays
is going to be
off.
great.
Absolutely, because it's also very hard to switch gears once you've never done that.
Of
And I
course.
often think of it like when you're planting something, right? You plant, we have to cultivate a garden. I mean, that's where we got the word. Farmers have to cultivate the land. That means it takes work. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't think of any farmer just sitting back with their feet up, watching their farm grow. It doesn't work like that. But we're
No.
so much, I think also, Victoria, because of the pandemic, and even though we're now sort of switching gears out of the pandemic, we've all been so self-focused and internally focused, and focused mostly in our own sphere of people, that we're not so used to expressing gratitude to other people, or even maybe expressing gratitude at all in a way that's mindful and intentional. So I think even more so, it's so important that we kind of start talking about things, noticing, sort of putting on your magnifying glass, your microscope, to say, "Ooh, what can I notice here?" It's all about intentional noticing and then verbalizing, and it catches on, because that becomes such a nice experience.
Yeah.
and it's a nice way to interact, and it's a healthy way to build relationships. So it really has so many layers to it. It's not just about being polite, like Ed. It's way more than that, and it gets
Mhm.
confused often.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Yeah, gratitude. I asked in the beginning, like, what is gratitude to you? A lot of times when we think about gratitude, we think about showing appreciation and thank you and please and, sending a gift basket or something. But it's really much more than that. It's really being able to yourself notice and integrate and be aware of and take stock in the good that's happening and all of the different things that had to come together in order for you to be right here,
Yeah.
right now in this space. It's a very beautiful way to look at that. And in order to get to a place to be, to be this way,
Right.
children need to have that modeling, right, from us adults.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why if you are thinking about it and you're intentional in what you reflect on, because again, you could have 1,000 lists of I'm thankful for, and that's very nice, and it's nice to have a gratitude journal and all those things. Like, those things are nice and they all help, but it really does come down to having a real understanding of what it means to be able to live the life that you do.
Mm.
And little kids can do that, because I've worked with kids as little in a classroom as 1.5-year old who can express gratitude. Maybe they don't know to say thank you, but it almost becomes their excitement about something is an element of gratitude, because they're seeing something they enjoy. And that's also where you can, even with little ones, you say, "Ooh, that looks like you got so excited. Isn't it so wonderful to have such a wonderful toy?" Like, it may sound silly, but actually, most kids have toys that they don't even know where they are, what they are, how many, or care if they get broken, because they don't think about it that way. But if you make and especially little kids, I find the littlest ones don't know better to be bored by things, really. They get excited about so much so easily. If we really cultivated that
Ah,
and kept that excitement going, I mean, think about how amazing the world could be and how much we would care for the world around us just organically, because we would say, "Oh, a toy, that's so exciting." Then a child might understand that a child who doesn't have a toy doesn't get to feel that. Maybe we can collect our toys and give it to other kids. Do you know what I mean? There comes so many things come from having gratitude and really deeply understanding that it's really life changing. It really can be.
yeah, and the universe. What came up for me is the universe is working for us. It's like somebody cancels. Oh my goodness, a whole hour for me to just catch up on what I need to catch up on. Wow,
Right.
right? But so many times we're like, oh, this person has no integrity. I can't believe they canceled
Right.
last minute. Right? But
Yes.
where in that challenge is the opportunity? Or, oh, this traffic. Oh my gosh, an extra half hour to myself. What?
Right.
I
Yes.
haven't listened to this Spotify playlist in ages. What an amazing time to just roll down my windows
Yes.
and be with me. Right. So, but that does not happen naturally unless we
No.
cultivate it.
No.
And I think
Absolutely.
what you said is beautiful.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, because literally everyone we speak to, it's just the easy thing to complain when things don't go well, but to look for what went well within that, or something that you benefit from, you have to be open to allow that to enter. And many times I do find people around are not necessarily so used to that, so they a little bit find it a little bit like, oh, like she's one of these like la la people who just thinks everything right. And that's when I say, no, I'm actually not a cheerleader. It's actually I'm choosing what I want to focus on, because I can
Hmm.
make that choice. And that's the trick is really, and it's not a trick, but that's really the essence of why it's so important to teach it and model it, because kids are not going to organically be so full of gratitude, because we live in a world that doesn't necessarily cultivate that. And it's up to us to say we can choose how we want to look at something. And yes, we got somewhere late. You know what? It worked out because this ended up happening. Great. And even though that may not be such an earth-shattering, wonderful thing, it's saying I'm not going to allow my energy to sit with all that negativity, to allow it to keep bringing me down. And it's definitely something I will share, Victoria, that once I started really intentionally being grateful and really searching for things to be grateful for, it changed. It literally epically life-changing, where you learn to, and again, it's not so easy to keep it up all the time. We are gonna, sometimes forget, but once you start working on it and you do things intentionally, you start to really see that it feels so much better and you want to do it more. And that's the amazing thing. And we've talked about this before. It's free. Gratitude is free.
I love it.
You don't really need for it. You don't really,
No.
you just need a mindset to say, I'm going to look for things to be thankful for. I mean, and I would challenge anyone, there's bazillion things in front of you. It's not even just one, most likely.
Which, we got to wrap up, and I hate wrapping up with you because I love talking with you. So we definitely have to put some more dates on the calendar for these conversations,
for sure.
to help people out there. But why don't we end with some gratitude? I would love to share some gratitude here with you.
Thank you. That would be great. I would love to do that.
Awesome. Do you want to go first or should I?
I will go first, actually. Thank you for asking. Okay. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to go first. So I am definitely grateful and enjoy also speaking with you, because I find often in the world of pandemic, sometimes we go to the more negative place because it's been a hard year and change, if not more. And being able to talk to someone who also wants to spread how wonderful gratitude is, uplifts me and makes me realize there's so much good in the world. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my views, but also to experience what you think and feel inspired by that.
You're welcome. Thank you for acknowledging that. It's a beautiful thing we share. I love it. I love it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And
your turn.
Thank you. I have a couple. I have so many, but I'm so grateful. And I was reflecting, Randy, since we're together, on how wonderful the opportunity to work with you in different capacities has been, and how every time I do, it renews this why in me, why I do what I do, why I put it on my calendar and make space for it in my day, because those moments are there and then they're gone. And then how I spend them with, who I spend them with. So just being able to be with you and have that opportunity. Thank you. It's been incredible.
Yes, really mutual.
So good. And just grateful for today, grateful for the challenges in my life right now, grateful for the space, the beautiful park that I live next to, the people in my life. I'm grateful for so much. And
absolutely. That's like you said, I was saying there's so many things. Like I find sometimes I don't even know where to stop.
I know.
And I have to, right? And that's kind of like fun, because usually, we could all complain for quite a while. It's so much easier. But when you realize like you can't stop, you could just keep going. It's like, wow. I have to make more time for this. It's really amazing. And I wanted to, why don't we make one quick thing you said about the the challenges, because over the pandemic, I started doing videos and it kind of petered out, but I was talking about channeling the channel. See, I can't even say it so many times quickly. Channeling the challenges into opportunities, because that is such an empowering thing to be able to do. And that is exactly what gratitude allows us to do. And so it's wonderful.
Perfect way to end. So anyone out there who is finding it challenging to flip the script and be that model for their child, see that challenge as an opportunity to work on that for yourself and, give that gift outwardly to everyone really that's around you. So
Right.
I love the challenges as opportunities. And my challenge is always saying goodbye. I don't like it, but
Yes.
but you know what? Once I say goodbye, I can go on to something else that brings me joy too. And we're going to do this again, right?
Right. That's right.
So
Absolutely, for sure. I look forward to coming back and tackling something else for sure.
me too. All right, everybody, have an amazing afternoon. If you didn't catch the live and this is a replay, please let us know if you liked it. This is my type. Type into the
Yes, definitely.
into the box
Share with
there.
us.
Yeah, we're gonna share it. And Randy, I will see you soon. We'll see everyone
Okay,
later.
looking
Bye,
forward.
everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.